what you're going to pull in that loop when you pull from concepts. I can tell you that's going to be the same from Iowa, Coldwell, Century 21. All of them, the big brokerages have bought into this. So I think hopefully we'll see this catch on, and hopefully it's going to be the minority when you see one that is not a uniform purchase agreement. A couple of things I know we'll get into after we get going. You cannot make a change on this. This is a copyrighted document, and that is very important because they are going to, there will be major ramifications. So in .loop, and ours won't even let us, I'm sure, you can't put a text box over it. I'm sure that, Becca, it'll be coded that you can't do that. Now, if you want to strike through and initial something, yes. But if you are out there and you get an offer from a company and you somehow realize that there's something they have changed in this, that needs to be immediately brought to Cindy's attention because that forfeits the entire purpose of this purchase agreement. So just be sure that you do not make any changes. Don't put this in your Word document and sit there and type it up and then make a change on it. That's going to be a big, big no-no. I just do want to talk about the numbers. This is something that we saw in one of the forums. That's kind of dumb. It is so helpful. At least for the committee, we were going through and we're like, okay, line item 60, look at that because of this. I think it'll be so nice for sellers too, that you can address and say, okay, on line 32, this is where it says that. I think when you start really getting into this and getting your hands on the documents, I think you're gonna love the numbers. The reason too you're going to have the addendum is since this is uniform, and you can't make changes to it, concepts can't add on like any administrative fees or anything like that. So those have to go onto the addendum. So we'll get into why, but that's kind of the long and short of company specific things have to go on the addendum because again, these 4 pages are not supposed to be changing. What did I miss? What did I
think we got it. We'll grab it as well. Oh, question.
Yeah, I have a question. So can you add things to the addendum? Like a lot of times lately, we've been writing in non-refundable earnest money, things like that.
Absolutely. So you would just have, I mean, with this addendum, obviously there's not a lot of room to add in that, but I would just still use a separate addendum, just like you're doing right now.
Okay.
Add that on. And you can, you know, on here, I would probably put C addendum when you start talking about earnest money, C addendum, and then absolutely you'll be able to use your addendums just like you're doing.
Okay, great. And you can also use that line 174 for additional provisions as well. Look how easy that was to go find 174.
So since this is an addendum to a purchase agreement that we as concepts agents will have to have with every offer, do we always, like it looks like this is for our eyes only, not for the seller's eyes? Is that correct?
That's a good question.
So like, because you know how you normally put subject to one addendum or whatever?
Do you know the answer to that? From a practicality standpoint,
is there anything on here that a seller can't see?
No. The only thing is that I'm thinking about is you're going to need this included because when they start pulling numbers, when our closers are pulling numbers, I don't know if we have any closers here, they're going to need like the 340 at closing. So you're going to want this attached and sent because I'm afraid otherwise perhaps the seller, if that becomes a purchase agreement and this isn't included, you're going to miss that 340 or whatever other numbers.
Well, and it's included now on the purchase agreement.
And the seller is signing it.
Or the seller, okay.
So yes.
Yeah, it's included now on the purchase agreement.
I don't understand why it just wouldn't be. Why does it have to have anything to do with?
If you think about agency agreement though, not the closers and the lenders and people that are pulling your figures don't see our agency agreement. So how are they going to know to get it on the settlement statement?
But not on the sales sheet.
The closer is still going to have
Yeah.
documentation. I don't
It's
have
not
Emily or
yeah.
anybody here, do we? Because I don't want to speak out of turn for them, but they still have to have that. And again, your purchase agreement and addendum supersede those others. So I think that's probably part of why it has to be on here too.
Okay, I'm just looking at our current purchase agreement and it's, I believe it's right on it, on page 5.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
I'm missing page 5.
Personally, I feel better going through it with my
Mhm.
buyers, that it's on the purchase agreement as well. I don't know why, but I feel better, even though we've signed agency and I told you we paid the $340 that you're going to, I guess I feel better having it on here again.
Well, and the other piece of it is agency has nothing to do with payment. And so you want those two issues separated. You can form agency with someone and never see a dime from them. So those would have to be separate because of that. Those are two different ideas of concepts, yeah. Disclosure and then acceptance of agency. Good questions though. Let's remember those for later. We're gonna hit Lance with those.
Right.
Any ideas? All right, you're gonna go through line by line?
Yeah.
You've already read through, I know. And here's the thing, credit to all of you for actually being here, because then you'll see this line by line. I don't know if you guys saw my little Facebook post yesterday that said, don't get caught with your pants down, because this is gonna change in dot loop, and then we're gonna have some agents who pull it up, and all of a sudden they're trying to fill it out the same way they filled out the old one, and they're gonna be like, holy crap, now what do I do? Oh yeah, we're recording holy crap, aren't we? Okay, we're gonna use this afternoon's video. I think we're gonna go with that. Okay, so as always, you're gonna put in the date, you're gonna put in the MLS number. Notice that this has the DMAAR symbol on it. That is what you will see, and that'll be your indication when a purchase agreement comes in from somebody else that they are using the standardized one. So if it's on there, it should be the standard one. That's where they can get in trouble if it's not. You won't see any co-branding. You shouldn't see the DMAAR symbol and then a brokerage symbol. It's just the DMAAR symbol.
So you used to have to choose, I'm not very good with it. You used to have to choose between the 250 purchase agreement and the 3 something purchase agreement.
Mhm.
It won't make a difference anymore, it'll just.
We will still have two in dot loop because the fifth page, this will automatically be attached to it. So the addendum to purchase agreement, there will always be one attached. So you'll still choose.
Choose.
Yes, you'll still choose. You're jumping ahead,
Sorry.
but you got it. That's okay. All right, so agency agreement in this offer to purchase it is clearly understood and agreed by the parties here too that the selling agents exclusively represent the buyers in this transaction. The listing agents exclusively represents the sellers in this transaction. If the same agent represents both buyers and sellers, a detailed explanation of consensual dual agency, and I highlighted this, must accompany this agreement. So you have to have your dual agency agreement with the purchase agreement if that's the case. I mean, we do anyway, right? Nobody misses it. Now they have to have it. Further, the buyer and seller acknowledge that prior to signing this agreement that their respective listing or selling agent made a written disclosure of the type of representation being provided. So just a reminder that agency is the first form that has to be filled out always, always, always. So 2 is the seller. The undersigned is your buyer. Hereby offered to buy the real property situated in whatever county, whatever city, locally known as, street address, described as, that's the legal. Subject to and together with any reasonable easement, zoning restrictions, restrictive covenants, and mineral reservations of record, if any, and agree as follows. So far this has been very similar to what we've had. I did go through and do highlights for really the things that are a little different than what we're used to. The undersigned buyers hereby offers the following terms for the purchase of the property. Purchase price, so the purchase price shall be, that's the full price, and the method of payment as follows. As we've had before, if you have money with this offer, but most of the time you'll be filling in the second one, and this much upon acceptance, that's your earnest money. And unless otherwise agreed in writing, both amounts to be held in trust by, that should be the listing brokerage listed there, and shall be paid within 5 banking days of the acceptance of this offer.
I'm going to stop you there. That is something, had a ton of conversation around shall be paid within 5 banking days of this offer. I would not be surprised if we see changes to that going forward, because if you are aware, the brokerage actually should be depositing within 5 days of an accepted offer. So there's a little bit of pushback on that. we had to make a decision and go with one. So again, make sure you're collecting your earnest money right up front, so then you don't have to worry about, not right up front, I never collect with an offer, but as soon as everything is agreed upon, make sure you're collecting that and getting it turned in. Don't hold it till the 5th day, because you could be putting your brokers or your brokerage at, you know, at a bit of a timing thing. I don't know where that voice is coming from. But if asked, that's why that's a little different than what we've had in ours.
Well, and one thing to know as well, I don't know if you've been on Matrix, was it yesterday or the day before? You got the little pop-up that talked about earnest money deposit and trust fund accounts.
I'm super excited about this as well, sorry. So this is going to be something that is MLS-wide. Now, brokers do have to submit and sign up to do it, so you may have some listings that you're not able to. But this is no longer going to be electronic earnest money through like Concepts or Century 21 has their own. It will actually be integrated into MLS. So when we get there on Matrix, once there's an accepted offer and it's gone pending, there will be a little trust funds thing that you click on, and I've seen all of the training things. It's super, super easy. You'll click on that as the listing agent, about that, as the buyer's agent will actually go on there and submit for an email to go out to your buyer. It will say in there, it's super easy. It takes you about 30 seconds. It'll say, here's the property, because you've already clicked on that. You'll put in your buyer's name. You're going to have a secret word, because then when you tell the buyer, you're going to say, you're going to get this emails for you to submit earnest money. Our secret word is blue. Then when they get the email that comes from Trust Fund, it's going to, they'll type in blue and all of it goes through. But it's going to be super awesome. It'll go in there. It has a tracking record, so it'll show when they deposited it, if there was insufficient funds. Everything will be on there, so you can go in real time and see it. When lenders are asking for proof of deposit, that's exactly what you're going to send them. You can email it out. Also security features on it, which I don't understand of this, but the security features on it are awesome. So I know even the brokers are super excited about it, because all of the fraud that's out there these days.
It takes some liability off of the individual brokerages, and it is, again, something that's DMAAR wide. So how cool is that?
So then will each brokerage have their own trust account, or is it going with
Yes.
DMAAR?
No, everybody will still have their own trust account. I mean, they can opt not to have a trust account, but your majority is going to still be run exactly. So trust funds is almost just a place that gets the money and then sends it out to the broker. So they're kind of like the middleman of.
It's a pass-through service, basically, for convenience.
Yeah.
And security. And security, so it gets right into the trust account, the individual trust account. All right, so we have the balance shall be paid through a new mortgage. This agreement is contingent upon the buyers obtaining full loan approval in writing for a new mortgage. Mortgage type shall be whatever type it is, for not more than 1% of the purchase price, with no interest at the percentage. And just a reminder, put a percentage in there, not best rate. That can leave your buyer out hanging, because does that mean best rate that's available in the marketplace, or does that mean best rate that your buyer can get? Because the best rate your buyer can get might be 20% interest. So put 8% in there, or less with a term no less than however many years. Now these two this is new, so the check mark is buyers agree to pay all customary loan costs, and then the second one is sellers to pay buyers actual closing and loan costs, including origination fees and discount points, and prepaid expenses not to exceed, and the dollar amount there. So instead of having to make that a separate line item, because it's so common in our area, it's right in the purchase agreement for you. Makes it super easy. Buyers agree upon acceptance of this offer to immediately make application with the lender for such mortgage as provided above, and to make their best good faith effort. And I wanted to just take a minute with best good faith effort to kind of give you a reminder. So that means your buyer has to actually apply for the loan, turn in the stuff they're supposed to turn in, instead of, I don't have what I need to do, so now I can't get the loan, they did not make a best faith good effort, or best good faith effort to get that loan, so they could potentially lose their earnest money because they couldn't get a loan because they didn't make the effort. Does that make sense? So it's something to really lay out to your clients, because I think with that line, we could see some issues with sellers saying, well, did they turn their stuff in? Well, if they didn't do that, they didn't make a good faith effort. So just something to be aware of. Buyers should provide to sellers a written preliminary approval within so many days of acceptance. If you've got it with it, you can do 0 days of acceptance and turn that right in with this. This preliminary approval from the lender must evidence buyer's ability to qualify for the loan amount and terms set forth above, subject only to such reasonable and customary conditions as the lender typically imposes on all preliminary approval letters. Preliminary approval to be followed by a written final loan commitment with all lender contingencies met on or before. Now, our purchase agreement did have the 10 days already in it, and so you'll normally see that as 10 days. Other companies, sometimes you'll see 5 days. So, but we've typically done 10 days there. And that's what our current purchase agreement has. If buyer does not make delivery of final loan commitment as stated, sellers may rescind this agreement by giving written notice at any time thereafter to the buyer, stating that if the required documentation has not been obtained within the 5 days of the receipt of such notice, then this agreement shall be null and void. If sellers do not choose to give such written notice, then this agreement shall remain valid until the buyers have obtained a final loan commitment or denial. In addition to the proceeds of the aforementioned mortgage, the buyer shall pay the balance of purchase price in cash at the time of closing, with adjustment for closing costs to be added to or deducted from this amount. Oh.
I have a question. So like on a new construction purchase agreement, that on a built to order, do we have to check one of those boxes?
One of which boxes?
The ones up here with the buyers and the sellers to pay all customary loan costs. We would check that buyers agree to pay all customary loan costs, right?
Unless the builder is participating in it, yes, it would be buyers to pay all customary loan costs.
So one of those boxes has to be checked.
Yes.
Okay.
If it's a new mortgage.
Okay.
If they're paying cash, then.
Right.
Then with cash, it would make it optional.
Okay.
Did I say anything wrong there?
No.
Okay, good. Assumption or, B is assumption or contract for deeds. See attached financing addendum. Line 42, I'm gonna try to go back to the lines here. If it's cash, buyer will pay the balance of the purchase price in cash at the time of closing with adjustment for closing costs to be either added or deducted from this amount. This contract is not contingent upon buyers obtaining such funds in order to close. And then we've got a little bit of a term difference. This one has, seller has the right to receive verification of funds within 5 days of acceptance. Was there a discussion on that? Because ours says they do have to provide verification of funds.
Yes. I guess the seller doesn't have to. I mean, if they want to take the word of the buyer who says that they have the cash there, you don't have to show it. Now, that would be silly, of course. This would be another area where I would perhaps use a strike through. So if somebody has funds to purchase a home, and especially if I had another offer that I was looking at from a listing agent standpoint, I may strike this and say, I want your proof of funds within 2 days, because can you get those within 2 days? And that would be a place where I could strike it, put 2 in there and have everyone initial off on. So again, they're not saying you have to keep it exactly the way it's written, but that would be a good area where you could do that.
And it's nice on that amendment or addendum, depending on which you're using as your form or in other provisions, you can reference the line item in that. You know, line, where are we at? Line 44, you know, line 44, and then put the new verbiage in there. So it makes it really clear, so everybody stays on the same page. Oh, well, I thought that was in reference to this. Nope, put your line items in there. Appraisal D, this agreement is contingent upon the property appraising at or above the purchase price. Appraisal to be completed no later than 10 days prior to closing. Obtaining an appraisal is buyer's or mortgage lender responsibility. So that was a little bit different than what we currently had in ours. Ours just simply stated appraising by the buyers or the lender's appraiser. It got more specific with it for the appraisal. E, subject to closing. This offer is contingent upon buyers closing and obtaining the proceeds from the sale of their home located at, scheduled to close on or before. So again, the new subject to sale addendums will help clarify for everybody and keep everybody on the same page. And it will go with this verbiage because some of them don't really work with the verbiage. I think we were looking at ours as well, just to make sure that it lined up with what this new verbiage is in the purchase agreement.
I have a question. Can we go back to the appraisal?
Yes.
So I feel like we're kind of at the mercy of the lender as far as like ordering that appraisal and getting it completed and stuff. So is it something that like I don't want to say tell them what to do, but like, hey, just FYI, this purchase agreement says that this has to be completed by X day. If not, we're going to potentially have problems. Like, how do you hold them to that? Because I have had problems.
When it's been less than 10 days before closing?
Yeah, I have too.
You're gonna have
There's a lot of
to,
times in new construction, you don't get the appraisal back until like 5 days before closing.
and
So
that
then
would
what?
be one, again, that you may want to do an addendum within X days of completion. Because on new construction, if the appraiser has to go out or still subject to final certification of completion, because the appraisal will a lot of times he's going to go back out and sign off. So I would just write it in so that you have that. But you're going to want to be upfront with your lenders and your buyers that yes, if your lender messes around and doesn't get things done, the ramifications are that the seller could give you notice and you could be out the house that you want. It's going to be a training thing for lenders as well. I know we ask lenders a lot when we have a deal going through is title back, is appraisal back. One thing that we'll probably want to do on that is add in appraisal is due and to be reviewed no later than X. You know, loan commitment with all contingencies met needs to be done by Y. Because otherwise lenders are working off that close date, not our 10 days or 5 days or whatever you agreed to in here.
Sometimes though, for like new construction, it's hard because the appraiser won't come back out until, you know, your gutters on, your sod's out. Sometimes depending on weather, if you have a lot of rain, you're down to the last 2 days before close.
And that's where I would do an addendum, just stating, you know, purchase agreement is still in effect, it's subject to final sign off from the appraiser.
I guess I'm less concerned about the new construction because I've never run into problems with those, but like the resales, I'm like, there is no reason why you shouldn't have, you know, you just ordered this and we have 5 days before closing. Like,
Right.
You just ordered it.
Hopefully it will help us keep lenders accountable for those lenders who aren't as speedy on things as we want, help kind of give them a deadline. But it's going to be our job to educate them that it can be serious, and yes, the seller could actually give notice and they could lose the house.
Because without the appraisal, you can't get the final loan commitment. So that goes back to the loan commitment line.
Now, just like that, just like it is right now though, all of those kind of things are based upon a listing agent who knows their documents and actually calls out for those items. If a listing agent does not say anything and you're 2 days before closing, this is still, as we just read, all in effect. Mm-hmm. So it's only going to be an issue on a listing agent that's saying, it's 10 days before closing, you haven't shown me that the appraisal's back and we don't have commitment with all lender requirements or contingencies met. And I hate to say, but I would venture to guess probably 90% of listing agents don't call that out.
Well, and most don't need to, because if you want to keep it, you know, if you want to keep it together, you're just going to let it roll. This doesn't say that it nullifies it if that doesn't happen. It just says it gives the seller the option to notify. So, you know, we have had it where it gets down to it and the seller's like, you know, I didn't really like this buyer anyway. They've been a pain in the rear and they don't have the final loan commitment on this date. I'm done with them. I've got another one waiting in the wings.
Or you have, as a listing agent, you've talked with your seller, you've got a reason, a feeling that something's going on. I mean, we got one right now going, and I had a feeling something was going on, so I'm going to use some of these dates to push to see 10 days in advance. I mean, it's better than 10 days further. Are they really approved? Is this done? Is it in? So sometimes you're using it, I don't want to say it's a game, but it's a little bit of a tool to see
A tool.
what's really going on.
Yeah, better 10 days now instead of 20 days later, even though you don't want the answer. All right, so we're at, I think we're at 51, other financing terms. You can fill those in. On to 52, marketing. I didn't highlight this one, but I think it's a good reminder. Unless otherwise provided for in this purchase agreement, seller acknowledges and agrees that the property will be off the market while this purchase agreement is in effect. That means once this is accepted, it does have to show off the market.
No more waiting for inspections.
You would have to have it on
It
a
would have
separate
to be,
addendum.
it would have to be in here,
Even if it's subject to sale?
unless it's in here. Now,
Well,
the
the
subject to
sale.
yeah, the subject to sale addendum has other verbiage.
Yes.
Because well, as long as you guys adopt that in the new
Right.
new form, where it says it will continue to be marketed, but that's on the addendum. But if there's nothing other than this, it has to come off the market, even with unresolved contingencies.
What about open houses? A lot of times I'll write on our purchase agreement that, but you can't write on this. So
No,
will
you
I have
could
to
write on it. You can write on it.
You can't block it out.
Okay,
But you could write on it and have everybody initial, and that's fine.
okay, great. So I can just write on there, we will continue to hold it open until it closes?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. But unless you've got that addendum that the parties have signed off on, it's off the market.
Or you could also do it. Do you have a new construction addendum that talks about other stuff too? I mean, you could wrap it
We
all
have a
on there
construction
too.
agreement, yeah.
So whichever. But yes, you can add to this.
Okay.
There's just not a lot of room.
Additional provisions you could add on like 174, 75. Or put it on a
Or an
separate
addendum.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, a lot of your builders will still have their own purchase agreements that they require. So it will not have the DMAAR logo on it. So it'll just be like a mom and pop shop who has their own. So read it carefully if you're on the other end there. All right, so line 54, closing and possession. And this is one of the things I like, that it's really specifies, and then there's a couple things I really like, but that's one of them. Closing shall be on or about with the date. Now, we did stay with the on or about. Other areas do on or before. So it does have a little bit of flexibility, unless changed by an amendment to this purchase agreement. Possession to be given at either, so you've got check marks here, either at time of closing or on a date with a time. Because we struggled with, if it's just on a date, that means midnight, the seller still gets to keep it. That's why the date and time got added into there. Yay. We're just saving ourselves from ourselves right there. Let's see. If for any reason the closing is delayed, the buyers and sellers may make a separate agreement with adjustments as to the date of possession in the form of an amendment or interim occupancy agreement. This transaction shall be considered closed upon the delivery for recording of all documents required to convey marketable title to the buyers and receipt of all funds by the settlement agent. I'm sure there was a lot of discussion with this one as to what constituted closing. So once buyer has signed off on it, their marketable title, but it doesn't have to be recorded yet. Make sense? All right. There is a new line in there for homeowners association and covenants. This purchase agreement is for a townhome, condominium, or other property subject to homeowners association. Association fees, if any, shall be paid current by the sellers to date of closing. See HOA addenda. So it does spell that right out.
And the reason that we added that stuff in for line items is just to, again, give you a heads up of listing agent, you need to be looking for that or making sure they're signing off. So again, everybody's just on the same page.
Thank goodness. This is all because somebody sued somebody for something. It used to be what, one page and a handshake? I talk to some old timers. All right, line 62, of course, property address always goes in the upper right-hand corner. Just to keep these all together, dot loop autofills that for you, so you don't have to worry about it unless you're writing it by hand. Duties of the parties. The brokers, their agents, employees, and associates make no representations or warranties as to the physical condition of the property, its size, future value, or income potential. So be very careful if you are representing some of that, even verbally, because this is signing off that says that you are not. Sellers and buyers acknowledge that the sellers of real property has a legal duty to disclose material defects of which the seller's actual knowledge and which a reasonable inspection by the buyers would not reveal. Condition of property, it's a little bit different than what we had, and I'm sure it was just kind of the legalese part of it that went into that.
Well, I think this was pretty much created from Bill Sarangeline. He's an attorney. Yeah, he tweaked this a bit.
So it just lists, it references federal law known as Title 10. It's not Title 11, it's actually Title 10. Requires notification of potentially dangerous levels of lead-based paint in properties built before 1978. Remember, it doesn't include 1978. So see the lead-based paint disclosure. If applicable, the sellers will provide the buyers with copies of any records or prior test results pertaining to lead-based paint findings. Any seller's disclosure of property condition form required by Chapter 558A of the Code of Iowa is incorporated herein as if fully and completely set forth in this paragraph. So a lot of legalese to say, make sure if it's pre-1978, you've got the lead-based paint disclosure.
Did you say it included 78?
It does not include 78, prior to 1978. So just a reminder, what's the fine for every missing initial on the lead-based paint disclosure? $11,000 per missing initial. That's it. I mean, it's chump change for you, but the rest of us need to get those signed off. Okay. The property as of the date of this agreement, including buildings, grounds, and all improvements, will be preserved by the sellers in its present condition until possession, ordinary wear and tear accepted. The buyers may, so we're at line 73, the buyers may choose one of the following alternatives relative to the condition and quality of the property. So again, this is going to specify, so either one, on or before with a date, or check mark for the number of days after final acceptance. And we're going to talk about days at the bottom of page 3 because we also define days in this one. Yay. That's like one of my top 5 things I like about this. After final acceptance. Seriously, defining days right there. Buyers may at their sole expense have the property inspected by the person or persons of their choice to determine if there are any structural, mechanical, plumbing, electrical, lead-based paint, other. I just highlighted the things that were different than our current one. Material deficiencies, health, safety, environmental, or other hazards. This is not to be construed as an inspection to bring an older home into compliance with current building codes. Just a reminder for everybody. Within this inspection period, buyers must notify in writing sellers as shown herein of any deficiency or hazards. The sellers shall notify the buyers within, it's now 3 days. I believe ours is 5 days. Does that sound right? In writing of what steps, if any, sellers will take to correct deficiencies or hazards before closing. The buyer shall, within 2 days in writing, notify the sellers that 1, such steps are acceptable, in which case this agreement as modified shall be binding upon all parties, or 2, that such steps are not acceptable, in which case this agreement shall be null and void and any earnest money shall be returned to the buyer. Or, you'll check mark 2, buyers acknowledge that they have made a satisfactory examination of the property and are purchasing the property in its existing condition and waive their rights to an inspection. Line 85, if buyer do not secure inspections or provide notice for remedies within the inspection period, then buyers shall be deemed satisfied with condition of the property and the inspection contingency will be waived. So if you get past your inspection period, it's just gone. Even though you mark it off, if your buyer chooses not to do it, it's okay. Well, I guess it's okay. I'd still recommend doing it. Is that coming up? Mm-hmm. Yay. Line 87 references new construction. If the improvements on the subject property are under construction or are to be constructed, this agreement shall be subject to approval of plans and specs by the parties within so many days of final acceptance of this agreement. New construction shall have the warranties implied by law, specifically made by suppliers of material or appliances or specifically tendered by the contractor. The brokers and their agents make no warranties as to the quality of construction materials, And then this was just a little different than our current, other than the express warranties specifically made by the suppliers of materials and or specifically tendered by the contractor, there are no implied or express warranties with regard to such construction. Cool? Spells it out. Line 93, final inspection. The buyer shall be permitted to make inspection of the property prior to possession or closing, whichever is sooner, in order to determine that there has been no change in the condition of the property, ordinary wear and tear accepted. Any questions? Line 95, inspection of private sewage disposal system. I think that was new.
Yes, it's new. This is one that we found gets missed a lot and isn't done at the time of a purchase agreement saying who's going to pay, going through that. So it was, again, it's like the HOA thing, just another check mark of both sides need to make sure that they have that included and are on the same page at the time of the agreement.
Otherwise, surprise, somebody has to do that. Property is served by a private sewage disposal system, or there is a private sewage disposal system on the property. The septic system shall be inspected and approved for real estate transfer by a licensed DNR inspector as required by Iowa Code. See addendum. So if that's marked, there should be an addendum there. 98, wood destroying pest inspection. Just a little bit of a change in this one. If the subject property is at least one and not more than 4 family residential dwelling, sellers at their expense shall have the property inspected for termites or other wood destroying pests. Notice that we list sellers. In other areas, it is the buyer. By a licensed termite or pest inspector prior to closing. If active, termite or pest infestation or damage due to prior infestation is discovered, sellers shall have the option of either having property treated by a licensed pest exterminator and having any damage repaired to the buyer's satisfaction, or declaring this agreement void. So this does give the seller an opportunity to hop out of it. Do you want
No, go ahead.
to talk about how that went?
No, go ahead.
It does specify this provision shall not apply to fences, trees, or shrubs. So that's a new thing to keep in mind. So, there's carpenter ants out in the tree, out in the yard somewhere. That does not affect this purchase agreement. Provided, however, buyers may accept the property in its existing condition without such treatment or repairs.
Now, this is something I have, this is kind of a side note from the purchase agreement, but this is something I've run into a few times in the last couple of weeks with some agents. You may want to have a conversation with your buyers. Some people, if termites are found whatsoever, they want absolutely nothing to do with that property. In that case, if you've had that discussion and you know that, even if they say, if a fence has been touched by it, I don't want it, again, I would write that into an addendum. If once the termite comes back, if there's any evidence, buyers have the right to have the null and void. They don't care. They do not want the seller to have the option of treating at that point. So that's something you may just want to have a talk with your buyers about if you have a reason to think that they have concern.
Yeah, and some people have issues whether it's currently active or even past infestation. So just make sure that you're clear with them, because I think it was a past issue that we were struggling with.
Construction, we can go ahead and cross that out?
Yes.
And then put pre-treated?
Yes.
Yes. Can't put a box over it, just a reminder, it's a cross out and then an addition of text.
So is it pretty wishy-washy, the line item 101, having any damage repaired to the buyer's satisfaction?
It is. However, again, that's kind of that piece where certain buyers are just, I had one recently, it was an agent that had it that there was damage, the seller said, we'll treat it, but there was paneling behind, so you couldn't see what damage had been done behind there. And the buyer said, I want a piece torn down or removed so that we can see behind there before we feel comfortable. Seller said no. So again, in that scenario, buyer satisfaction allowed them out of the contract.
Okay. And seller said no. So it would go back to like an inspection item, where inspection items are also.
If the seller treats it and the buyer's like, I'm not satisfied with that, basically that can't happen.
You would get into a negotiation of, like in this one, when they were talking about that, it would have gotten into a negotiation of, okay, buyers are so adamant about this, they're willing to walk away from the earnest money. Sellers keep the earnest money and they'll sign, or we'll split the earnest money. Then you're gonna start talking again. Otherwise, if you can't come to an agreement, you're gonna end up in mediation.
Yeah.
But, from a buyer's side, I would argue that's not to my satisfaction. But I probably should have had, as a buyer's agent, I should have had that conversation and prepped them up front that if there was any, we need to write it in.
How do we get around the tree part? Can that be crossed out?
Yes.
Like,
So your buyers say that they want it.
well, if there is a large tree, right, smack dab in the middle of the yard, that they do possibly feel that there's issues with.
Yes.
That it costs $2 or $3 grand to
Cross out an initial.
Because I've had that with the ash borer. People are really concerned about that
Yeah.
having it treated. So yes, you could.
And good news with this super cold weather, it was supposed to have killed a bunch of the ash borer. Just saying.
It's better.
Let's hope. All right. Line 104. So home warranty did add a little bit into it. Home warranty shall be included with this sale, yes or no. Warranty to be paid for by either seller or buyer. Warranty provider, it does make you specify the plan, the cost, and the deductible. So there's no question as to what plan the buyer is requesting. And there's no question that maybe listing agent said, oh, well, we just decided that we were going to put this other one on there.
If it's a 1 year, builder, new construction builder, just put builder 1 year warranty there.
Yes, you could.
Yeah, warranty provider would be builder, and then plan, builder 1 year warranty. 106, special assessment. Seller shall pay in full all special assessments that are lien on the property as of the date of closing. Any preliminary or deficiency assessments which cannot be discharged by payments at closing shall be paid through a written escrow account with sufficient funds to pay such liens when payable, with any unused funds to be returned to the seller without further signatures of the buyer. And this is one of the things I like too. All charges for solid waste, trash removal, sewage, utility bills, and assessments for maintenance that are attributable to the seller's ownership shall be paid by the sellers. So that way you have no question when your buyer comes in and there are, 1,500 garbage bags on the curb without stickers on them as to who needs to pay for that. It's specific to the agreement. Property taxes on 111, nothing really changed there. Seller shall pay all real estate taxes related to the property that are liens for prior years and all those that are due and payable in the fiscal year of closing. All real estate taxes for the property for the fiscal year in which closing occurs, due and payable in the following fiscal year, shall be prorated to the date of closing, with such proration based upon the applicable assessed value, rollbacks, exemptions, and levy of record at the time of closing. Seller shall pay any real estate taxes due and payable on or before the date of closing, with buyers receiving credit at closing for any remaining unpaid real estate taxes for which seller is responsible under this section. If this agreement is for a contract purchase, see addenda. Sound good? Spells it out. We love taxes and arrears. Rental property. So line 117, if this is for a rental property, there is a separate addenda. So much of this would apply and then the rental would be separate. 118 for insurance. This is pretty basic and we'll reference on our addendum the buyer's insurability, because that was not included in this.
Right.
Was there a reason they chose not to do that?
No.
They just chose not to.
Yes, I think that will likely be addressed in one of the following.
In future
addendums
ones?
or changes.
Because if the buyer can't get insurance, they can't get their loan probably. So maybe they're saying that it would end up falling under not being able to get the loan.
Because it would, right, if they had a mortgage, it would fall under that category because you have to be able to insure it, but for cash.
That's true. That's true. I think we might see an update there.
Yes.
Seller shall bear the risk of loss or damage to the property prior to closing or possession, whichever occurs first. Seller agrees to maintain existing homeowners insurance and buyers may purchase additional insurance. In the event of substantial damage or destruction prior to closing, this contract shall be null and void unless otherwise agreed to by the parties. The property shall be deemed substantially damaged or destroyed if it cannot be restored to its previous condition on or before the closing date provided. However, the buyer has the right to complete the closing and receive the insurance proceeds regardless of the extent of the damage. So it's, again, a conversation if there's substantial damage. All right, line 125. Need to step it up just a bit. Abstract of title. Seller shall promptly provide an abstract of title continued to and including the date of acceptance of this agreement. Such abstract shall be delivered to an attorney for title opinion for the buyers, such attorney to be selected by the buyers or their lender as an option, and with buyer's approval, sellers may give evidence of title by the purchase of an owner's title insurance policy for buyers, or lender may purchase or require buyers to purchase a title insurance policy to protect the lender's interest in the property. The seller agrees to make every reasonable effort to promptly perfect the title in accordance with such opinions, so that upon conveyance, title shall be deemed marketable in compliance with this agreement and the land title laws of the state of Iowa or the title policy. If closing is delayed due to seller's inability to provide marketable title, this agreement shall continue in force and effect until either party rescinds the agreement after giving 7 days, and that was a change in the number of days, I think it was 10 calendar days before, written notice to the other party and the brokers. The seller shall not be entitled to rescind unless they have made a reasonable effort to produce marketable title. Questions? 134, joint tenancy. Upon full payment of the purchase price, sellers shall deliver to buyers a general warranty deed to this property. That was just a slightly different verbiage than what we had. If seller's title is held in joint tenancy, this agreement shall not sever such joint tenancy. If buyers are married, their interest hereunder shall be held in joint tenancy unless otherwise specifically indicated. Remedies of the parties. If the sellers fail to fulfill this agreement, the buyer shall have the right to have all payments returned and to proceed by any action at law or in equity, and the sellers agree to pay costs and reasonable attorney fees, and a receiver may be appointed. If the buyers fail to fulfill this agreement, sellers may forfeit the same as provided in Chapter 656 of the Code of Iowa, and all payments made herein shall be forfeited, or the sellers may proceed by an action at law or in equity. The buyers agree to pay costs and reasonable attorney fees and any other expense incurred by the sellers. In the event of a breach of this purchase agreement by either the sellers or buyers, the listing broker shall be deemed an intended third-party beneficiary of this purchase agreement and may maintain an action at law against the breaching party for the collection of the broker's commission and all costs, including attorney fees, including an action for the collection of the broker's commission. So that's all standard across the area. 145, survey. Buyers may have the property surveyed at their expense not to exceed 10 days after the final acceptance of this agreement. If the survey certified by a registered land surveyor shows any encroachment on said property, or if any improvements located on subject property encroach on the land of others, such encroachments shall be treated as a title defect. 148, court approval. If the property is an asset of any estate, trust, or conservatorship, this agreement is contingent upon court approval unless declared unnecessary by buyer's attorney. If necessary, the appropriate fiduciary shall promptly obtain court approval, and conveyance shall be made by court officer's deed. 151, funds. It is agreed that at time of closing, funds of the purchase price received from buyers and or buyer's lender may be used to apply to the purchase price, to pay taxes and other liens, same to be handled under supervision of the brokers and subject to approval of buyer's attorney on title questions needed to produce marketable title. Dispute resolution, 154. If initial buyers and sellers agree that in the event of a dispute or claim arising out of or relating to this agreement, the dispute or claim shall, before exercising any other legal remedies, be submitted to mediation in accordance with the rules and procedures of the Des Moines Area Association of Realtors Home Seller Home Buyer Dispute Resolution System. Initially or not initially does not constitute a counteroffer. So either way there. Included property. Now this is where we saw actually several changes. So 159. Included property, if any. All property that integrally belongs to or specifically adapted to or is part of the real estate, except for rental items which have been disclosed in writing, whether attached or detached, including but not limited to light fixtures and bulbs, shake my head, bathroom mirrors, shelving. Shelving was added in there. So even if it doesn't look like a fixture, make sure that you're talking to buyers and sellers about that. All window treatments, all. So curtains would now be included in that, where before it was rods yes, curtains no. Now curtains would be included because it's all window treatments, and we're seeing a lot more shutters and that kind of thing. Screens, here's specific, television and audio attachment brackets and alarm devices. So many of the alarms you can just pick up and go, but now it's included. Cable, fencing, garage door opener and controls, radio and or attached TV receiving equipment, smart home devices such as smart thermostats, video doorbells, etc. So if they're there, they're included according to this, or unless they're reserved. Outdoor in-ground plants, again, shake my head. Water softeners, sump pumps had to be added. Attached or fitted floor coverings. So I think this is interesting to think about. If you have the rubberized mats that are fitted into a space, according to this, that would be an included floor covering. Yes?
Yes.
Installed security systems, it does specify now, central vacuum systems and accessories, in-ground lawn sprinkler systems and component parts. Really? We have people pulling those up. Built-in appliances, fences, fireplace screen, fire grate, and attached equipment. So it really specifies a lot more. My guess is somebody took them with them and probably shouldn't.
I think we'll have a lot more conversations about smart home devices too, because what does that really include? Does it include Alexa? People are using those with their smart home devices. So my recommendation, if you have a house that has a lot of smart home, make it very specific as to what's included and what's not. And as a buyer's agent, again, write in there what you think they're getting and what they're not.
Mm-hmm. I didn't think about Alexa because she would be considered that too.
I guess.
I'm surprised that wasn't.
Take Alexa. Well,
yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
That's true.
Because you put in Alexa and then there's something.
But she controls everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
Okay.
like the nanny cams in your kids' rooms that aren't installed but are just plugged in?
According to this, that's a smart monitoring device. So be specific with your sellers. They can reserve it, reserving nanny cam in XYZ bedroom. All right, other included items, excluded property, make sure to be very specific on those. 170, any personal property not included in the sale of the property must be removed at the expense of the sellers prior to possession. Isn't it nice that it's in there, Corey? Very, very specific. Notice, any notice required under this contract shall be deemed given when it is received in writing, either by hand delivery, fax, return receipt requested mail, or electronic mail. So electronic mail was added into there. Persons designated for receipt of any notice for the purpose of this contract shall be sellers and buyers or their respective agents. All good? 174 gives you a space for those additional provisions. It's not a big space, so that's where you may end up doing the addendum if you have a number of line items. 177 under document preparation, the buyer's request that, and it will be the company, so ours will be Remax Concepts, or any of its employees, agents, or associates select, prepare, and complete the form documents as authorized by Iowa law or by the Iowa Supreme Court rule, such as purchase agreements, groundwater hazard, and declaration of value incident to a residential real estate transaction. General provisions are all the same as well. In the performance of each part of this contract, time shall be of the essence. The contract shall be binding on and inure to the benefit of the heirs, executors, administrators, assigns, and successors in interest of their respective parties. The purchase agreement, its representations, warranties, and covenants shall survive the closing of the transaction described here and the delivery and recording of all documents necessary to transfer title or any interest in the property described herein to the buyers. 184, in the use of this document, the following descriptions and definitions shall apply. Again, one of my top 5 things that are in this, calculating time periods, days. How many have had issue with having a disagreement between buyer's agent and seller's agent over what constitutes days? Yes, I see heads nodding. I think we all have. All references to days shall be construed as business days unless otherwise noted. A business day is defined as any day other than weekends or legal holiday. A day shall begin at 12 a.m. and end at 11:59 p.m. In computing any time period described or allowed herein, the day of the act or event from which time period runs is not included, and the last day of the time period is included unless that last day is a state or federal holiday, in which event the last day shall be the next business day. Make sense? So day of acceptance, if we're calculating, 10 days for an inspection, does not count. It starts the next day. Yay. Anybody else excited about that? Is it just me? I'm super excited about that one. Line 189, acknowledgement. The signing of this contract creates important rights and liabilities on the part of both the sellers and the buyers. This purchase agreement is made of my own free will and shall be good and binding upon the undersigned if accepted below. If you have concerns regarding the rights and liabilities, you are encouraged to seek competent legal advice. I think that's a good time to talk about, you don't have a 3-day out. That's like a rumor that went around for a long time that you had 3 days to just back out. No, this is legally binding as of right now, as soon as it's accepted. So, acceptance, line 193, when accepted, this agreement shall become a binding contract. If this offer is not accepted on or before, and this gives you date and time in order to put an expiration on it, it shall become null and void, and all payments shall be repaid to buyers without liability on the part of any broker to either party. If accepted by sellers on a later date and such acceptance is ratified in written or other form by buyers, then this agreement shall be valid and binding. That makes sense? Okay. The next line, kind of between 198 and 199. 199, seller's counter offer. The undersigned sellers of the above property accepts the above offer. However, counters certain terms and conditions on this offer as per attached counter offer. So if you are using this box, then there should be an attached counteroffer. We do have a form for that with buyers and sellers initials, just to keep everybody aware that there is an addendum there or a counteroffer. The next one is seller's acceptance. The undersigned sellers of the above property accepts the above offer and agrees to sell this property according to the terms offered. On ours, that see attached documents will be hard-coded with an X on there because we and everyone else, actually everybody should have that X because all brokerages will have that extra addendum sheet just without fail. So we should probably just have that hard-coded in the main one. Everything else is just regular signatures. I think I did put it on your copy as well. Name of selling company. We're going to hard code that into .loop, so you'll have your next concepts and the firm number in there. Okay, again, one of my top 5s. Do you see the box that says seller's rejection? Good thing there. Really good thing there. The undersigned sellers of the above property rejects this buyer's written offer to purchase the above stated property. What's that going to do for you? You know that the seller saw it. Anybody feel like maybe they've written some offers in the last 2 years that the seller didn't see? Yes, that's gonna resolve that whole issue right there. I love that, top 5. I did circle, this form is copyrighted and for use by DMAAR membership only. This document must display the DMAAR logo and it has the copyright date on it. Just a reminder that Jen talked about, you cannot block things out. And then another reminder, deleting or blocking out is not allowed, crossouts are allowed.
So with that, crossouts are allowed, do you have to do the counteroffer thing or can you cross out?
You can cross out an initial, especially if it's just a strikeout. No, we're not doing that. And you cross out an initial. The last thing that I have is, I put draft, although my understanding is this will probably be
Pretty close.
to what it's going to look like.
Look at it right now, so.
Yeah, but it's not the final, so I didn't want to send out one that's not a final. So just a couple things on there, and this should help reduce the number of pages because, obviously now we have 5 pages for the purchase agreement, but this will take away some as well. So the home warranty piece is in there, so it gives that acknowledgement that that the buyer either accepts or declines the coverage, but that it has been presented. The buyer broker compensation is in there, and that's where we'll have the 2 different addendums available, or it'll still look like the whole purchase agreement because it'll be the whole purchase agreement with the one price and then the purchase agreement with another price. Insurance, and this is what we may see added in. Sellers shall bear the risk of loss or damage to the property prior to closing or possession, whichever, actually, I'm gonna skip down to buyer's insurance. This agreement is conditioned upon buyers obtaining a homeowner or property insurance binder on the said property within so many calendar days upon acceptance of this offer. Buyer agreed to make immediate application for said insurance. If buyers are unable to obtain such a binder within said time frame, then this offer shall be declared null and void, and the earnest money shall be returned to the buyer. So that's something we had in ours, but they opted not to initially put it into the DMAAR agreement.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
So that was kind of snuck into ours and just all of a sudden there's a new PA on that loop. Like I never got notified of that. So I'm wondering, what should we put there? Like, what do you guys suggest we put there for like the calendar days?
Oh, for the number of days?
Yeah, for securing insurance.
It's really kind of up to your buyer. I mean, really within 10 days, they should be able to contact an insurance provider and make sure that they can get insurance on it. And it won't go into effect until closing.
So just making sure that they can get insurance, but not
Yes.
that they have to have the specific insurer already identified.
Correct.
The only thing I've run into recently with some buyers is that the insurance needed the appraised value
Yes.
to underwrite it. So because of that, you may want to give yourself some more time there.
I haven't been like 21 days because of that.
Yes.
So I didn't know if that was
Make it a
too
little bit
long.
longer. It's really, it's protection for your buyer more than anything. So that's really
Okay.
up to you with your buyer. Some flood insurance, they've suspended some of it right now too. So just be aware if you have a property that's recently listed in a floodplain, that may be an issue for buyers. And then the affiliated business arrangement disclosure, that's added into here, so it doesn't have to be a separate form. And this is just to give notice. It's a disclosure that has to be made because we have relationships as RE/MAX Concepts with the Real Estate Service Center, with Cinch, which is what HMS is going to be called, the home warranty provider, and then also with Max Insurance. So that's just a regulated kind of disclosure that has to be done, but at least it's all on a page that doesn't have to be an additional page now. Okay, I know we ran over a little bit, but what questions do you have?
So is this addendum here, is that one less like hard line too, that you can't over type or anything, or is that, because I've just seen a lot of different broker comps out there, and so I'm curious, is that a changeable thing, or is that?
That one, like some of the teams have some different things,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Or even like
that
some-
part
I've
will,
seen
you can
videos
change.
out there too, that have common broker comps that, like the two that are in value.
Yeah, because the
Yeah.
addendum won't be a
So
copyrighted.
that one.
Right. Just the first 4 pages are copyrighted, this is the brokerage.
Okay, I just wanted to take this.
So yeah, that can do, that you can do.
I missed, but when is this effective?
As soon as we get a final back, the addendum is with the lawyer right now, so once we get that back and you get it all put it into document, I think we're thinking in the next 2 weeks. Week or two.
The goal for DMAAR is March 1st to have as many people using it.
Which would be the next week or two.
I
So
know.
how do we prevent if some non-compliant brokers and their agent goes in, let's say end of March, 1st of April, and we get their purchase agreement?
It can't be mandated, so they can use their purchase agreement. It's illegal to mandate the requirement of using this. So it's just going to be hopefully people see the value and use it. Because it's also, so for mom and pop shops, it's out there. DMAAR, I think even maybe already has it on Form Simplicity. So they can go down there and download it. I mean, you could, if you have an agent that you are working with from another company, you can ask them and say, my seller really prefers to see it on here, but you can't mandate it.
As far as you know, are a lot of the big companies?
Yes, Coldwell, Iowa, Century 21, I think Precision's on board.
I believe so.
Who else? But yes, big ones are.
Which I think.
And I'm sure I'm missing some, so.
The biggest ones, the ones that you come across. Oh, Killer.
Yes.
Say Killer.
They're on
They're, yeah. All of the bigger companies are on board. It's such a time savings for you and for their agents, and it keeps everybody out of legal issues. And that's good for the public, it's good for us, it's good for brokerages, so there's no reason not to use it. What other questions? Excited about it? It's a good thing. Looking forward to more standardized forms. Yeah, I'd like to see the seller property disclosure too. Just put my name in there. Okay, thank you for coming. Make sure that you initialed in because you do get a credit for it and enjoy. Okay.